My lifelong best friend leaked our private conversation to my boss and got me fired, so I went nuclear on her. I took her job, her relationship, and her home. The morning I was fired, my boss played an audio clip of me calling him dishonest and saying someone needed to expose what our company was doing. The voice was mine. The recording came from a private conversation with my lifelong best friend, Chloe. She had removed the part where I explained that I had found duplicate vendor invoices and feared our division director was being deceived. In the edited version, it sounded as though I planned to damage the company because I hated my boss. By lunchtime, I had lost my job and Chloe had been appointed interim lead on my biggest account. She sent me one message: "I'm sorry, but I couldn't let you drag me into your breakdown." What Chloe didn't know was that I had copied the invoice numbers before calling her. Those numbers connected her secret vendor company, her fiancé's bank account, and the corporate apartment where she lived. 6 months later, I was sitting in Chloe's former office, doing the job she had taken from me. Her engagement was over, and the building had given her 30 days to leave her apartment. People say I took her career, relationship, and home. The truth is that I exposed one scheme. Everything else had been balanced on top of it. My name is Morgan. I'm 32, and Chloe was my best friend for 25 years. We met in second grade after she shared her lunch with me on the day I forgot mine. Our mothers became friends, and our lives grew together. We attended the same schools, spent summers at the same lake, and knew each other's families well enough to enter without knocking. Chloe was there when my father died during our final year of high school. I helped her leave an emotionally abusive relationship in college. We were not casual friends who became close at work. She was the person I had expected to know when I was old. Our careers overlapped almost accidentally. I studied accounting and operations. Chloe studied communications. At 26, I joined an event production company called Meridian House as a project analyst. 2 years later, I recommended Chloe for a client relations position. She was excellent with clients. She remembered birthdays, resolved conflicts, and made nervous executives feel important. I was better with budgets, schedules, and the details that kept promises possible. Together, we became a strong team. Meridian produced conferences and product launches for large companies. Each project involved venues, catering, audio-visual services, transportation, and temporary staff. Vendor spending could reach hundreds of thousands of dollars, which meant careful approvals mattered. Our division director, Richard, trusted us. He promoted me to operations manager and Chloe to senior client partner. We worked on the same accounts but reported through different lines. Chloe became engaged to Nathan when she was 30. Nathan owned a small logistics company that delivered equipment for events. He was friendly, ambitious, and eager to work with Meridian. I warned Chloe that hiring her fiancé's company would require disclosure and competitive review. Chloe agreed and said she would never risk either career. For the first year, Nathan's company received no Meridian contracts. Then, a vendor called Westbridge Logistics began appearing on smaller projects. Chloe said Richard had recommended it. The company performed adequately, and the invoices stayed below the amount requiring senior procurement review. I did not connect Westbridge to Nathan because the names were different, and Chloe never disclosed a relationship. The first warning appeared during a technology conference. 2 invoices listed the same overnight equipment delivery on different dates. One came from Westbridge, the other came from our regular transportation vendor. I assumed it was a billing error and asked Chloe which company had completed the delivery. She said both were involved because equipment had been transferred midway. The explanation was possible, but the venue log showed only one truck. I flagged the discrepancy to Richard. He told me to request supporting documents and avoid delaying the client's final reconciliation over a minor amount. Westbridge supplied a signed delivery confirmation. The signature belonged to a temporary coordinator who denied signing it. That was when I became worried. I searched our internal records and found 11 Westbridge invoices across 7 projects. Each remained just below a review threshold. Several described services also billed by other vendors. The total was more than $80,000. I told Richard that we needed an internal audit. He became defensive and asked whether I was accusing Chloe of wrongdoing because she managed the vendor relationship. I said I was questioning invoices, not Chloe. Richard warned me that disrupting active accounts without proof could cost us clients. That evening, I called Chloe from home. I trusted her more than anyone and believed she might know why Richard was resisting. I recorded work calls automatically through a note-taking application approved for internal meetings. But this was a personal call. I did not record it. Chloe did. I told her about the duplicate invoices and the false signature. I said Richard was being dishonest if he claimed the pattern did not justify review. I also said someone might need to expose the problem outside our division if he kept blocking it. Chloe became quiet. Then she asked exactly which invoices I had found. I read several numbers from my notes. She told me I sounded exhausted and paranoid. Chloe said Westbridge was legitimate and warned that accusing senior people without evidence could destroy my career. I asked why she was defending a vendor rather than asking what the documents showed. Chloe answered, "Because I know you. Once you decide something is wrong, you stop seeing people." The call ended badly. I still believed she was worried about me. The next morning, Richard and a human resources manager called me into a conference room. They played a 90-second audio file Chloe had sent overnight. The clip included me calling Richard dishonest and saying someone needed to expose the company. It omitted the invoice details, false signature, and my repeated statements that I wanted an internal audit. Chloe claimed she had recorded the conversation because my behavior frightened her. She said I had become obsessed with proving corruption and might leak confidential information. I asked HR to review the complete recording. Chloe said she had stopped recording after realizing the conversation was personal. The file metadata showed editing, but HR said trimming silence did not prove manipulation. Richard accused me of threatening the company and accessing vendor data outside my responsibilities. Vendor reconciliation was part of my job, but the atmosphere had already changed. I was terminated for misconduct and loss of trust. Security watched while I collected my bag. Chloe did not come downstairs. By the time I reached home, my account access was gone. I had copies of invoice numbers and my own notes, but no confidential documents. I had followed company rules about removing client information, which now made defending myself harder. Chloe sent the message about not letting me drag her into my breakdown. Then she blocked me. I spent the first week in shock. My termination agreement offered limited severance if I agreed not to disparage Meridian. An employment attorney advised me not to post accusations or contact clients. Instead, we requested preservation of the full audio, vendor onboarding records, email approvals, and invoice history. We also reported the suspected billing irregularities through Meridian's independent ethics channel. I looked at public business records that anyone could access. Westbridge Logistics had been created 18 months earlier. Its registered agent shared an office address with Nathan's company. A later filing listed a holding company whose mailing address was Chloe's corporate apartment. That apartment was part of Meridian's executive housing program. Chloe received reduced rent because she hosted visiting clients and staff during major events. Using it as a business address without disclosure violated the housing agreement. The public records did not prove stolen money. They proved Chloe had concealed a direct connection to the vendor she managed. My attorney sent the findings to Meridian's audit committee, not to Richard. The committee hired an outside investigator. Richard was instructed to preserve records and step away from decisions involving Westbridge. Chloe was placed on administrative leave. Then Nathan contacted me. He had learned about the investigation when his bank requested information about transfers from Westbridge. Nathan insisted he did not own Westbridge. He said Chloe had asked permission to use his office for a temporary project, but told him the company belonged to a freelance logistics coordinator. Nathan showed my attorney messages where Chloe described Westbridge as a way to collect referral fees Meridian refused to pay her. She told him the arrangement was approved by Richard. It was not. Bank records later established that Westbridge payments moved into an account Chloe controlled. Some money was transferred to Nathan's business account with descriptions suggesting legitimate delivery work. Nathan had completed several deliveries, but he had not seen the full invoices Meridian paid. Chloe had used his company to make the vendor appear operational while keeping the difference. Nathan ended their engagement after investigators showed him that Chloe had also forged his approval on the vendor disclosure form. He provided records rather than risk being treated as a participant. Chloe told mutual friends I had seduced Nathan into betraying her. I had met him once with attorneys present and had never contacted him privately. The full audio recording became the next breakthrough. Chloe had deleted the original from her phone, but her automatic cloud backup preserved a longer version. It included the invoice discussion she claimed never existed. It also captured her asking for the exact invoice numbers. Within hours of our call, someone using Chloe's credentials had opened those invoice files and replaced 2 supporting documents. The system logs preserved both versions. The investigation concluded that Chloe edited the recording to discredit me before I could escalate the audit. Richard had not known Westbridge belonged to her, but he had ignored multiple warnings because Chloe was his strongest client partner and the projects remained profitable. Meridian offered to reinstate me. I did not accept immediately. Returning to the same position under Richard felt impossible. The audit committee created a new compliance-focused operations role reporting outside his division. It included responsibility for vendor controls across the company. The title was Director of Operational Integrity. It was effectively the job Chloe had expected to receive after taking over my accounts, with broader authority and better pay. I accepted on the condition that my termination record be corrected and employees involved in the original decision receive training on whistleblower complaints and edited evidence. Chloe was fired for undisclosed conflicts, falsified vendor records, and retaliating against an employee who raised concerns. Richard lost his leadership position, but remained with the company in a non-management role. Meridian recovered part of the money through frozen payments and insurance. It notified affected clients and refunded improper charges. Law enforcement and civil attorneys handled the remaining questions. The apartment consequence came from Chloe's employment contract. Her reduced lease required active employment and prohibited undisclosed commercial use. After her termination, management gave her 30 days to leave. I did not contact the building or request eviction. The relationship consequence came from Nathan learning that Chloe had forged his name and exposed his company to liability. I did not take him. We are not friends, and we have not spoken since the investigation ended. Yet, Chloe continued saying I had taken her man and home because that version made me an aggressor rather than the person she tried to frame. At a mutual friend's birthday, Chloe arrived unexpectedly and confronted me. She said I had always envied her ability to connect with people and had waited for one mistake to steal her life. I told Chloe this was not one mistake. It was 11 invoices, a hidden company, forged disclosures, an altered recording, and a retaliatory firing. Chloe began crying and said none of it would have happened if I had trusted her instead of investigating. I answered, I did trust you. That is why I called you before I called the audit committee. She had no response. The birthday host asked Chloe to leave after she raised her voice. I did not feel victorious. I felt as though the person who shared lunch with me in second grade had disappeared behind someone who believed closeness meant access to every weakness. 6 months after my reinstatement, Meridian completed its control changes. Vendor ownership now requires independent verification. Invoice thresholds are reviewed in aggregate, so repeated, smaller bills cannot avoid scrutiny. Employees who raise concerns cannot be terminated without review outside their reporting chain. Those policies matter more to me than the title. Chloe has repaid part of the money through a civil settlement. The legal case is not fully resolved. She lives with her mother and works in a role unrelated to client procurement. Some mutual friends still believe I should have handled everything privately. I ask what private solution existed after Chloe used a private conversation to get me fired. None of them can answer. I have also examined my own choices. I recommended Chloe for the company because I confused knowing someone for a long time with knowing how they behaved when power and money were available. I noticed that she blurred personal and professional boundaries, but interpreted it as loyalty. Going nuclear did not mean attacking every part of her life. It meant refusing to protect any part of the scheme once she made my silence dangerous. I gave one truthful set of records to the people responsible for evaluating them. The job, engagement, and apartment fell because all three depended on Chloe's hidden arrangement remaining hidden. I miss my childhood friend. I do not miss the adult relationship we had become. Grief and relief can occupy the same space. There were earlier signs that Chloe had begun treating our friendship as professional insurance. When she joined Meridian, she often asked me to explain budget systems after hours. That was normal at first. Later, she began forwarding my explanations to clients as though she had written them. I joked that I was her invisible analyst. Chloe answered that great client partners knew how to use resources. During her promotion interview, she described a crisis plan I had created after a venue flood. I corrected the record privately with Richard, but asked him not to embarrass her. He said collaboration made ownership difficult to separate. Chloe received the promotion. I told myself her success helped both of us. In reality, I had established that she could absorb my work without risking the friendship. Westbridge exploited weaknesses Chloe had learned through me. Meridian required higher review for a single large invoice, but repeated smaller invoices were examined project by project. Chloe scheduled services across different event codes, and no reviewer initially saw the total. She also knew Richard hated admitting a profitable project had control problems. As long as clients were happy and events succeeded, he treated billing questions as administrative noise. The temporary coordinator whose signature appeared on the delivery confirmation was named Luis. He had worked only one weekend and feared Meridian would accuse him of fraud. When the outside investigator showed him the document, Luis provided text messages proving he had left the venue before the claimed delivery time. That evidence transformed the case from suspicious pricing to falsified support. Losing my job affected more than pride. My health insurance ended at the end of the month, and I was supporting my mother through cancer treatment. She had her own coverage, but I paid for transportation and part of her medication. I did not tell her I had been fired for 2 weeks because I did not want her to believe my stress was her fault. I applied for 6 positions and withdrew from 2 when applications asked whether I had ever been terminated for misconduct. My attorney told me to answer honestly and attach context, but no short explanation could make an edited recording sound simple. Chloe knew about my mother, the insurance, and the savings I had used during treatment. She knew exactly how vulnerable unemployment would make me. That knowledge is why her message about not being dragged into my breakdown felt so calculated. Mutual friends initially believed her. Chloe said I had become obsessed, insulted Richard, and threatened to leak client information. Because I could not discuss the investigation, silence looked like guilt. One friend, Serena, asked whether I needed psychiatric help. She meant well, but the question showed how completely Chloe had converted a financial concern into a story about my mental stability. I did not defend myself with confidential records. I said only that an independent review was underway. That restraint protected the case and cost me several friendships. Nathan's involvement was more complicated than the simple story that he was innocent. He accepted unexplained transfers and benefited from Meridian work. Investigators concluded that he should have asked more questions. His cooperation reduced his exposure, but did not erase poor judgment. When Nathan learned Chloe had forged his disclosure approval, he confronted her. She told him the signature was a placeholder and claimed I had forced the audit because I wanted his company excluded. Nathan asked why she had recorded me before I knew Westbridge was connected to him. Chloe could not answer without revealing that she already feared the invoice trail. Their breakup occurred 3 days later. Nathan returned the ring and moved his equipment out of the corporate apartment. Chloe told friends I had destroyed their relationship by sharing private banking records. The records were obtained by investigators with legal authority, not by me. The full audio backup contained 27 minutes. Chloe had submitted 90 seconds. In the complete call, I used the phrase, outside our division, not outside the company, and specifically mentioned the ethics committee. Her edit removed the word division, making it sound as though I planned a public leak. It also removed Chloe saying, "Give me the invoice numbers and I'll see if I can make this disappear." At the time, I interpreted that as help. Investigators interpreted it beside her later access to the files. System records showed she replaced supporting documents after midnight. The earlier versions remained in backup storage. One contained a delivery route copied from another project. Another used Lewis's signature image from an unrelated staffing form. The outside investigator interviewed me for 6 hours across 2 days. I admitted every personal opinion I had expressed about Richard, and every time I shared informal guidance with Chloe. I did not try to make myself look perfectly professional inside a private call. That honesty made the selective edit easier to demonstrate. The audit committee meeting where Meridian offered reinstatement was not triumphant. Richard sat at the far end of the table. He said he regretted moving too quickly, but maintained that my language about him was inappropriate. I agreed the language was unprofessional. Then I asked whether unprofessional language made the invoices legitimate. The committee chair said it did not. That distinction mattered. I could accept responsibility for how I spoke without accepting blame for the scheme or retaliation. The new director role was not automatically mine. Meridian interviewed external candidates and required me to present a vendor control plan. I earned the position through the same operational expertise Chloe had portrayed as instability. On my first day back, several co-workers avoided me because they did not know what to say. Luis sent a message thanking me for continuing the investigation after he had been afraid to challenge the false signature. I printed that message and kept it in my desk. Chloe's apartment was often described online as her home, but it was employer-supported housing with a reduced lease. She had signed terms requiring active employment and approved use. The building did not throw her onto the street. It gave her 30 days, offered moving assistance, and provided information about ordinary units. She rejected an ordinary unit because she could not afford it without the subsidy. Saying I took her home erased the conditions she had accepted and violated. After the birthday confrontation, Chloe's mother called me. She said Chloe had always compared herself to me and feared becoming the friend who needed recommendations. I felt sympathy, but I refused to convert insecurity into innocence. Chloe's mother asked whether I could write a statement saying Chloe never intended to get me fired. I said Chloe had sent an edited recording directly to my boss with accusations of misconduct. Whatever outcome she imagined, termination was clearly possible. Serena later apologized for questioning my mental health. She admitted Chloe had used concern as a way to make disagreement look dangerous. We are rebuilding a limited friendship, though trust is slower now. My mother completed treatment and is doing well. I eventually told her the full story. She said losing a childhood friend could hurt more than losing a job because employers were never supposed to love you. That is the grief I still carry. Chloe knew the child I had been, the father I lost, and the mother I feared losing. I cannot divide those memories neatly from the adult who used my trust as raw material for a recording. Going nuclear meant ending compartmentalization. I stopped protecting the friendship from the workplace, the engagement from the vendor company, and the apartment from the business address. Once one independent investigation could see the entire structure, each consequence followed the agreement attached to that part of her life. I did not take Chloe's life. I stopped allowing mine to be the price of preserving it. There is one photograph of us from 2nd grade that I still keep. We are sitting on a cafeteria bench, sharing the lunch that began our friendship. I do not look at it as proof that I should forgive her. I look at it as proof that endings do not make every beginning fraudulent. Chloe once helped a frightened child feel less alone. Years later, she used an adult friend's trust to protect a scheme. Both versions existed. Only one of them was making decisions when she sent that recording. Accepting that complexity has brought me more peace than trying to decide whether she was always bad. So, did I go too far by pursuing the full investigation after my lifelong best friend edited our private conversation and got me fired? Or were the career, relationship, and housing consequences hers the moment she built them on a fraud she expected me to take the blame for?